It's often easy to write off Sony as just another one of those flagship smartphone makers, and in fairness, they do really good stuff generally, but does it stack up well to the competition? That sort of depends on your priority. That's why Sony is trying to mix things up a little bit with its 2019 smartphones, including the Sony Xperia One, which, unfortunately, at least at this point in time, is not ready to take a look at. It does bring to the table a really interesting 21:9 aspect ratio display, making it feel a little ridiculous, but more importantly, Sony is taking that almost cinematic experience that you get with this super wide screen and bringing it to its mid-range devices like the Xperia 10 and the Xperia 10 Plus. Let's take a closer look. Right off the bat, no matter which version of the device you're looking at a pretty unorthodox design. Again, this 21:9 aspect ratio means the screen is exceptionally tall, and I can imagine some people with smallish hands having a little trouble. It might feel a little cumbersome because there's so much extra stuff above where your hand might normally sit. For those people with small hands, the Xperia 10 is probably the way to go. It packs a 6-inch Full HD Plus display, a Snapdragon 630 chipset, and 3 GB of RAM, which is very much in standing with some of the mid-range options that we got from Sony last year. The really big difference is you have this striking design with a pretty prominent forehead that houses the 5-megapixel camera, and it's generally just okay. Ditto for the 13-megapixel/5-megapixel dual camera around the back. The bigger of the two Xperia 10s does have a slightly improved camera. We're looking at a 12-megapixel and 8-megapixel dual rear-facing camera. But no matter which version of the device you're going for, the cameras mostly just kind of feel okay. They're not bad by any stretch, and there is something really fun about shooting on a device where you have this much screen real estate to work with. But in general, from what we've seen, the photo quality is fine. A little grainy, to be honest. It's pretty dark in here, so that might explain why, but I would caution you to not take this thing too seriously on the photographic front. For that, you're probably going to want to wait for, again, that Xperia One. From the software that we've experienced to the cameras to even the battery, it really does seem like one of those cases where the design speaks much louder than the hardware itself. This is, make no mistake, a very mid-range device. If I were you, I might be just a little concerned about this battery. It's a 2870 milliamp hour battery, and paired with this 6-inch display, I could see this maybe not lasting a ton of time, especially when you consider that the battery here is just like the rest of the body, so much smaller than the other devices Sony has shown off today. All told, it feels really nice for what it is, which is a definitively mid-range device. You're not expecting this thing to set your world on fire. That's purely Xperia One territory. If you're looking for something novel, something out of the blue for a mid-range device and don't want to spend a ton of money, this might be the way to go. For most people, though, I would probably recommend stepping up into the Xperia 10 Plus. Same general idea, same general design. It does have that pretty big forehead that has an 8-megapixel camera, but very little in the way of bezels and chin. And I gotta tell you, after having used these devices for a little bit of time, I'm starting to see the light when it comes to these super long displays. I mean, we've seen 18:9 screens before, certainly in 19:9 as well, but 21:9 kind of makes things, it kind of gives things a little extra room to breathe. Multitasking is going to be a big deal for these two devices, and having an app that runs almost entirely the length of the phone, the way you would expect a normal app window to operate, is especially powerful, and you can have a little bit of an app running above it just to give you that extra bit of context that you need. I've been poking around in Chrome, and I've popped up an email just above that. The Chrome window is perfectly easy to read and feels basically full size, and you have just enough room up in that email window to see whatever it is you have to see, and I think that's really what's going to be important here. You're going to have to wait, unfortunately, to get a sense of what this display works like with really high-end internals. That's coming in the Xperia One, and we're hopefully going to get some hands-on time with that too. Whether these 21:9 displays specifically become the norm remains to be seen, but I kind of hope they do, because the flexibility that multitasking on a screen this long has, plus the ability to just hold it in a way that feels very remarkably comfortable, even though you have a lot of screen going on there. That is almost intoxicating to me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these mid-range phones play out on the market when they go on sale later this year.